Hello and welcome to Laser Clinics Australia Facebook Live. Now today you may know Laser Clinics for hair removal, but today we're talking all things anti-wrinkle injections and dermal filler. I'm Nicola Wood and I'm lucky enough to be joined by Dr. Jonathan Hopkirk. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think first off, just to make a note before we get into things, is that due to legislation, rules and reasons,
Right.
I won't be talking or naming cosmetic brands or products themselves.
Okay, yep.
However, it's important to note that at Laser Clinics Australia we use the leading range and the highest quality TGA approved cosmetic products
Yep.
that are produced by the leading manufacturers Galderma and Allergan.
Yes.
And another thing to note, I think, as well, is that pricing and pricing range, it all varies depending on the individual
Yeah.
and what treatment you have and how much treatment you have and dosing and stuff like that. So I won't talk about pricing as well.
Okay, that's really hard from person to person. So I think we should make it all about you. Tell us about your experience and your role with LCA.
So yeah, basically I was always intrigued and curious about the anatomy. I did a Bachelor of Anatomy back in New Zealand. Hence
I can hear the accent.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
It's not strong, I can hear it, that's
We
all.
could get a New Zealand translator for the
Yeah,
case of
look,
the
that might
accent.
be helpful later on.
So yeah, I began my study in New Zealand, did
Yep.
a Bachelor of Anatomy in New Zealand, then did a Bachelor of Surgery, Bachelor of Medicine here, and then went from the hospital into the cosmetic world and have just loved it ever since.
Yeah.
I think there's a real craft to it, a real art to it, and it's an exciting and fun and booming industry.
Yeah, and it's so good to have such a good passion for it
Oh,
as well.
incredible, yeah,
Yeah.
it's everything.
Now, one thing I'd love to know, I think it's a good place to start too, the difference between anti-wrinkle injections and dermal fillers.
Yeah, sure, definitely. One thing I forgot to mention as well is that I'm one of 145, in our Laser Clinics Australia team.
Yep.
So we have over 145 fully qualified doctors and registered nurses,
Yep.
and basically they work throughout over 90 conveniently located clinics in Australia.
Yeah, it's massive, isn't
so
it?
I can't take it all down as being my work.
Oh, come on, we'll give it to you for this one. It's all you. You're the star of the show for now. So of the two particular treatments that we are talking about, I do get confused myself
Sure.
of what they are and what
Yeah,
they can do for
yeah,
me. So
yeah.
what would be anti-wrinkle injections?
Yeah, so anti-wrinkle injectables work by relaxing the muscle. So the reason we have expression is because the muscle sitting underneath the skin is basically pulling on the skin and tethering it.
Yeah.
And you have wrinkles which are there, which we call dynamic wrinkles or active wrinkles, which
Yeah.
are there when you're expressing. So if you're frowning or you're lifting up your eyebrows or you're squinting or smiling,
Yeah.
those are the muscles working, pulling on the skin.
Yeah.
And we call that a dynamic wrinkle. So anti-wrinkle injectables relax the muscle
Yeah.
through way of telling the nerve to basically have a bit of a holiday.
Yeah,
So,
calm down.
Yeah, calm
Stop
down.
creasing.
Calm down for a few months. So
Yeah.
basically what you have then is the muscle relaxes, and so the skin sort of smooths out.
Yeah.
It irons out, if you like. And then it also has the, I guess, the benefit of long term. If you can no longer crease the skin as much repetitively over as many years, you don't have embedded creases in the skin. So there is a
Yeah.
preventative value to anti-wrinkle injectables as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about dermal fillers?
So dermal filler does what the name suggests. So
Yeah.
dermal fillers fill in,
Yep.
basically. So where you have finer lines in the skin,
Yep.
they have the ability to be able to smooth out finer lines on the skin.
Yeah.
And then what they do as well is they can restore and add volume into areas that we're prone to losing volume as we age. For instance, in the cheeks or in the chin or in the back of the jaw.
Yeah.
And they can add volume to places that more volume is, I guess, beneficial, for instance. So in the lips and
Okay.
areas like this. So dermal fillers are quite diverse in what you can do with them.
Yeah. So I've got it right. Now, dermal fillers are going to be adding volume and definition to areas like my lips, my cheeks, and my chin.
Yeah.
And then anti-wrinkle injections are going to be doing that. They're going to be preventing and reducing the formulation of wrinkles. So
Yeah.
that would be my forehead and
Yeah.
frown lines and crow's feet.
Exactly, yeah.
Gosh,
and
my
we'll touch
crow's
on that
feet.
a little bit as well. And we'll highlight with areas at the end as well.
Gosh. Okay. Now, I know this question must get asked a lot. Does it hurt?
So we use products which have lignocaine in the product. So lignocaine is an anaesthetic agent.
Okay.
So we...
I'm a big baby, so tell me, it doesn't really hurt, does it?
So basically, no, the minimally invasive procedures,
Okay.
we use topical anaesthetic cream, which basically sits on the skin and numbs the skin from the outside. And then we use the leading products, which have lignocaine in them as well. So as you're getting injected, the area becomes numb.
Okay. Okay.
So in answer to your question, not necessarily that painful at all.
Okay.
People will come in, for instance, in their lunchtime and have an injection and then leave.
Oh, amazing. Okay, well, that's good to know. I know what I'm doing at lunch. Now, another question on everyone's lips. If I have this treatment, will I look false or plastic?
Yeah, and that's a good question because I think there's a lot of trepidation from the outset about people even coming into the clinic.
Yeah.
And so that's why we stress the importance and we ensure that people come in for a consult first to have a sit down and really establish what it is that you want treated and why you want it treated.
Yeah.
And then we can use, you know, our skills as injectors and our training, but also use basically our guidance based on what we've done before and use what you want in terms of an improvement in your face, and we can combine the two to make sure we meet a realistic outcome and make sure that your treatment preference is, you know, it's achievable.
Yeah, because that sort of leads me to a client coming in. There must be a difference in between what they would want and what they may need.
Yeah.
So how do you sort of, you know, juggle with that?
Yeah, so I think it's important to actually see and establish with the client what they're going to benefit from. So, you know, I try and replace the word need with benefit.
Yeah.
Because some people, what they think they might need or benefit from, they actually may not.
Yeah.
So again, it's about using your guidance to try and guide the client to ensure that they're going to get something which is actually going to benefit their overall appearance.
Yeah.
And make them feel as good in themselves as possible.
Yeah, good. Well, speaking of that, I'd love for you to actually draw on to me where we could actually put some sort of anti-wrinkle injections or dermal filler, and as you would do a consult, just to have a look at
I think because
face.
you're aging so gracefully, there's not a lot we could actually point out in terms of
Oh,
anything we can
thank
improve.
you.
But
You are just saying that because my mum's probably watching, so thank you for saying that. I'm
As
sure
is
she
mine.
appreciated that. Yeah.
All right, so I think what we will do is start with anti-wrinkle injectables. So at Laser Clinics, we're focusing on the top third of our face with anti-wrinkle injectables.
Yep.
So if we look, for instance, we have a couple of muscles in the middle of your top third of your face.
Yep.
And basically these work to pull in and down. So sometimes, I think it's important to mention because sometimes people wonder why we're injecting above the eyebrows when they're wanting us to treat their frown.
Yeah.
And that's because we want to soften the muscle which is pulling in
Yeah.
and then the muscle which is pulling down.
Yeah, okay.
Now your frontalis muscle is a big muscle which is the one that gives us our forehead wrinkles which run horizontally.
Oh,
So what we're doing
I hate that
basically,
one.
yeah, so what we're doing basically is we pepper anti-wrinkle injectables across the surface area of this muscle because it's actually a huge muscle which attaches from above the eyebrows right to the back of the head. So the pull of the muscle is quite large. So what we do is we pepper anti-wrinkle injectables throughout,
Okay.
and this basically softens the movement of your eyebrows because that's what it's doing.
Yep.
But again, it's a dose-dependent thing as well.
Yeah,
The
okay.
more you do, the less movement you'll get. So if someone doesn't want a huge treatment and a lot of movement lost, we can cater to that.
Yep.
So then another area that we treat is called the crow's feet,
Yep.
which is around basically the eye. So that's the orbicularis muscle, which has the purpose of squinting, smiling,
Yep.
and the sides. And that's what basically we're going to treat just a small portion of this around there, which is
Yep.
going to soften any wrinkles there.
Okay.
Now, another area now that we start going into the zone of talking about dermal fillers.
Yeah.
So dermal fillers basically in the mid-face are really important because this is where we lose a lot of our volume when we're aging. One area of importance, if you smile for me. So the middle part of your cheek where you've got great volume is an area where we lose a lot of volume. So we place dermal filler to the sides to try and give a bit of pull.
Yeah.
And we also place dermal filler in the middle to help replenish or top up the cup, if you like.
Yeah.
When you're losing volume and that volume's diminishing.
Yeah.
By way of replacing that volume, you also take a lot of the load off these areas in the lower part of the
So
face
does it
that
drop
people worry
too?
about. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then from there, so that's nice, revitalising, restoring,
Yep.
restructuring.
I like
properties
filling
of-
the cup. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, well, and I think that goes back to as well, people being worried about overdoing it.
Yeah.
If you just top up the cup, you
Yeah.
can do a lot to replenish someone's look.
Yeah.
So then we can focus on areas in here where we have lines that are there from smiling.
Yeah.
And so just by treating directly into these areas,
Yep.
you can use cannula. Cannula is a way of being able to distribute product in a nice, even fashion, but it's also a safer way as well because instead of piercing through blood vessels,
Yeah.
it comes out the side.
Yeah.
And it's also a nice, natural-looking way of being able to get right up through these areas here where we become creased because of the facial aging process
Yeah.
and the dropping of the skin
Yeah.
because of the losing of the backbone up there. So we say that treating down here, I guess, is an area we like to direct first is the mid-face,
Yep.
because that's essentially the legs under the table holding up the tablecloth.
Yeah.
So this is the cause and
Yeah.
this is the issue.
Yeah.
People come in because they're worried about this, so we try and direct them back to the cause and then treat the issue down the track.
Yeah, okay.
Then we have our lips. There's a lot of different ways that we can approach our lips.
Yep.
Some people want volume, some people just want lines around the lips. Some
Okay.
people want to try and flip the lip. That sounded very Kiwi.
Yeah, there's that accent.
Some people want to give shape, and you can do all these things. It's based around the product you use as well.
Yeah.
One thing I didn't mention earlier, which is important to note, is that different fillers have different properties.
Yeah.
Some fillers expand more,
Yeah.
and so we would use a thicker filler in the cheek, for instance.
Yeah.
And then some fillers aren't as thick,
Yeah.
and so for that reason probably won't last as long.
Yeah.
And we would use them in the lip area, for instance.
Yeah, okay.
And then we have areas like under the lips where we lose volume also, and in the chin and in the jaw. So what happens when we age?
My chin.
Yeah, well, not your chin in particular, but an area that we can treat.
Yeah.
So what happens when we age is that the mandible actually shortens. So
Yeah.
the chin gets closer to the angle of the jaw, which is back here,
Yeah.
and your chin actually rolls up. So it shortens off the lower third of your face.
Ah.
So what we want to do is to try and keep the nice, beautiful heart shape to the face.
Yeah.
We can augment the chin and add volume to the chin and give structuring to the jaw as well to give definition
Yeah.
and tension back to the skin.
Oh gosh.
And
It's
then we
amazing.
have new things on the market which have been around since the start of the year,
Yeah.
which help to reduce fullness underneath the chin, which can further shape the lower face as well.
Fascinating.
Yeah, there's a
One
lot
thing
to it.
too, I also, as I'm looking so fab at the moment with all the lines on me, I would, if I was going to get these cosmetic injectables, I would also be really cautious about people knowing that I'd
Yeah.
had it done. So
Yeah.
what are some of the side effects? And
Look, so common things you would expect are bruising, swelling, tenderness.
Yeah.
And I just tell everyone to
no one
respect
walks out
that.
with the white lines on their face,
No,
do they?
not generally
Yep.
not.
Good.
No, we rub that off.
Yeah, okay.
But everyone's different. You know, majority of your people will actually walk out having no blemishes on their skin,
Okay.
maybe a bit of irritation. But again, some people come out with a little bit of bruising, some people come out with none.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, people will come in their lunchtimes and have treatments and leave,
Yeah.
and no one on the street would know that they had anything done.
Yeah, amazing. And does that just go back to the person of if
It
they
does,
bruise quite
yeah,
easily?
It does, because some people will find they bang themselves on the corner of a table and they bruise.
Yeah.
Other people will find they could
I'm
bang
that
them.
person.
Other people will find they could drop a plate on their foot and they're fine. So
Yeah.
it all just depends on
They're
the person.
the lunch break.
That's it. at the lunch
Yeah,
break.
no, I've got that. Now, for those of you just joining us, I'm here live with Dr. Jonathan, and we are talking all things anti-wrinkle injections and dermal fillers. And we can see there are some comments coming through as well. I've just been handed a couple of questions that people are asking you. Oh, this is good because I actually want to know about this too. Can I get both dermal fillers and anti-wrinkle treatments at the same time?
Yeah, you can. So at Laser Clinics Australia, where we're focusing on with anti-wrinkle injectables,
Yep.
is the top third of your face.
Yep.
So as I referred to earlier, in the frown lines, in the forehead,
Please
and then
do.
for the crow's feet.
Yeah.
And so that's separate from the lower part of our face. So we can then go ahead and treat safely the lower part of the face with dermal fillers as well.
Awesome. It's one hell of a lunch break. Now,
a long one,
Yeah,
it's
it's
a
a long lunch break. It's a long lunch. Why do some dermal fillers last longer than others?
Yeah, so I think it's important to touch on both anti-wrinkle and dermal filler in that question to cover both.
Yeah.
Anti-wrinkle injectables should last between 2 to 6 months.
Yeah.
It depends on the person. It depends on how many times you've had the treatment before as well, because you can get overlap and you can get the muscle actually losing some of its size, because it's like any muscle. If you don't lose it, you lose a bit of volume.
So initially, would it be shorter or longer?
Can be, yeah, it can be shorter to begin with.
Yeah.
And as well, everyone has a slightly different result. And it's like any medication, everyone receives a product differently or receives a medication differently.
Yeah.
And there are different tools in the toolbox. So if one thing doesn't work for you, you come back and you establish this with your injector, and we can look for another option for you as well, rather
Okay.
than just accepting that it might not work for you.
Yeah.
It's important to have continuity as well.
Yeah.
So one thing with anti-wrinkle injectables, they last between 2 to 6 months depending on the person.
Yeah.
And it's important to mention that it's not like a light switch. It doesn't just turn off. Some areas that are stronger in you, for instance, may last not as long because the muscles are more dynamic, and so
Yeah.
they get their movement back quicker. And so you'll find from, say, 2 months on, you'll slowly start to see some movement come back.
Okay.
As for dermal fillers, it depends on the product, it depends on where you're using it, and it depends on why it was used. If I was using a product, for instance, for the purpose of trying to build up volume, and we used more product in that area, and it was a slightly thicker product because we wanted to restore volume, that's going to last a lot longer, say, 16, 18 months, rather than a product which we're just going to do fine line treatments, say, around areas which are really dynamic and move a lot.
Yeah.
Lips, fine lines around the lips are really mobile areas.
Yeah.
And we're not going to use a product which is really thick there because it's close to the surface. There
Yeah,
goes
of
my
course.
accent again.
Yeah.
So it's a slightly more silkier product, if you like,
Yeah.
which has a purpose of removing a crease on the skin, but it's a softer product, so it's not going to last as long.
Okay. How quickly will I see results? You want it instantly.
Yeah,
You want to look good after that lunch break.
That's it. So anti-wrinkle injectables,
Yeah.
depending on what your baseline is in terms of what the client has, if they've had treatment before and there's only a little bit of movement back, they're probably going to see it maybe a little bit quicker. People that come in for the first time, this is generally your most dramatic result, is your first anti-wrinkle treatment, because your muscles have never received it before. So you would see it within a few days.
Shocked.
Well, essentially, yeah, you get
Yeah.
you get a little bit of a an overwhelming response the first time, and
Yeah.
sometimes people are gutted that they don't get that again.
Yeah.
So your first response will be your biggest one, and your quickest one generally from about 3 days onwards you'll notice. Then from 14 days is when you have the full effect. So that's why we make sure that we ensure at laser clinics everyone comes back at the 2-week mark, so we can establish the result and go from there and top up if we need to do any top ups.
One quick one that I wanted to touch on as well. If you don't like the results, can they be reversed? Can you reverse results at all?
So look, with the likes of dermal filler, you can reverse the results. We try and encourage that we take a conservative approach first, because it's important to mention that the products that we're using, dermal filler products, are just a sugar molecule, it's just a gel.
Yeah.
So they are malleable.
Yeah.
And so you can do quite a lot just with massage.
Yeah.
And then in the case that the person still wanted to make some changes and reverse it, there are agents that we can use that dissolve the product as well.
Yeah.
As far as anti-wrinkle injectables go, it's just about establishing the optimal dose for the person first, and then just treating area by area to ensure that we get the right result with the person. But anti-wrinkle injectables can't be resolved in terms of a quick turnaround, but they don't last as long as dermal fillers anyway. So generally within a matter of weeks, you're back to square one.
Yeah, you're back at the start. Oh, how amazing. I certainly know I have learnt a lot. Now, for those watching that would like to get cosmetic injectables, what would you recommend they do? What's the next step?
Yeah, so look, I would recommend getting into one of our over 90 plus clinics in Australia.
There's no excuse, they're everywhere.
No, exactly. And making an appointment with one of our injectors, and just having a good sit down, a good consult.
Yeah.
Basically letting them know what it is that you want, and what areas of your face that you would be interested in having treatment.
Will they get this? Will they get all the white?
They will get some. Eyeliner. So be prepared for that.
Awesome.
We will rub it off before you go out.
Look, we'll make it a look.
Yeah.
Maybe this can be the new look.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I should have drawn some whiskers. It has been Halloween recently.
I'm grateful you did it. Thank you very much.
So yeah, I would book in at one of our laser clinics, Australia clinics. Go online. Everything that you need to know is on our laser clinics webpage or Facebook page.
Yep.
And so you can book in and come and see one of our injectors, and then go from there.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for talking us through.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you everyone for joining us.